Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Deep Dive with me, Tiffany and Stephen.
Hey guys.
Well, for the past few weeks, Stephen, we've talked about two big issues, the war in Iran and also Singapore's AI plan. And in the last few days, there have been increasing concern about the war and the need to end it.
That's right.
Because the war affects 1/5 of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas shipments.
Yeah, so people are thinking, well, what does that mean to me? Well, just to give you some idea, about 20% of the world's daily oil consumption passed through the Strait of Hormuz. And that from over about 130 ships that were passing through it daily, that's dropped to around 10 or less per day. So what that really means is that there's less oil in the whole entire system. And I guess the question is, what would that mean for us down the road? How is that going to really impact our wallet?
Yeah, because as far as I've seen, crude oil prices settle down a little bit. But at the time of this podcast recording on Wednesday, 11th March, Qatar, one of the world's largest LNG exporters, hasn't resumed production at its plant.
Okay, so what does all of this mean? How is it going to affect us here in Singapore? We have a diversified option for our energy needs, but with about 95% of our electricity coming from imported natural gas, are we prepared if this conflict drags on?
And also with AI accelerating and the world becoming increasingly unstable, how will all of this affect our energy needs and especially our wallets? So with us today, we have Minister Tan See Leng, Singapore's Manpower Minister, and Minister in charge of Energy and Science and Technology in the Ministry of Trade and Industry. Welcome to our show, Minister.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so Minister, I'm going to jump right into it. The war in Iran, that's weighing on all our minds. So what impact will this have on us here in Singapore? I mean, the Energy Market Authority has said that most households won't feel the pinch immediately, but that only suggests that at some point in time, we're going to feel the pinch.
Well, I mean, we have, of course, significant concerns over the escalating tensions over in the Middle East, involving Iran and many of the Gulf countries. Our stance has always been to reach out to all parties to ask them to de-escalate. I think, given where the current tensions are, notwithstanding the fact that President Trump said that he thinks he sees the war ending very soon, but we are prepared for different eventualities. We, on our part, like what you have alluded to, we have actually quite a sizable, supply coming from that part of the world itself. But over the last few years, we have also actively sought to diversify our portfolio. So we don't just import natural gas from the Middle East. We also import from Africa. We import from Australia. And some other parts of the world as well. So in our overall energy mix, it is something that we can wear, given the diversification of our portfolio. And if you recall, about 4 or 5 years ago, we actually passed a series of bill amendments to anticipate, in fact, to prepare ourselves for this type of shocks. And I think we're in a much better position today. We have a standby LNG facility. So we obviously have stockpile of LNG as well as diesel. And we use it quite interchangeably. Should the supply of natural gas gets curtailed, we can actually switch over to diesel in all of our CCGTs.
So then we have to ask you, because people are thinking, well, stockpile, how much, how long, how long can we go on our own?
I think we're in a relatively steady state today. The exact amount is a matter of our own security, so I'm not at liberty to share it to the public. But I think it's enough to last for months.
Okay.
But then if we look worst case and best case scenario, the war drags on for months, several more months. Best case scenario, it ends tomorrow. Both sides of the coin, how's that going to play out?
Well, of course, we hope it can end tomorrow. We hope that it can end within the next couple of weeks. So that would be an optimistic scenario for us. I think in a not so optimistic scenario, I wouldn't say worst case, but not so optimistic, it lasts for a month and beyond. And then of course, then there are potential for it going beyond the 3 months. So we have different contingency planning scenarios, which we work as a complete whole of government exercise, and at different stages, the government would have interventive measures to come in, both to address the spike in prices and at the same time, obviously, also help our businesses as well.
So in the optimistic scenario where you have, say, hopefully the war will end in a few weeks, we will be able to weather whatever that comes after, because it would take a while, for whether is it, ramp back up, shipments to go through the Strait of Hormuz, and it takes a while for things to come to this part of Asia. Even in that situation, you say that we will still be okay in at least the short to medium term.
That's right.
With what we have.
Yep.
Okay, because I'm also...
I think we'll be okay for months.
Okay, we'll be okay for months. Okay, so we are in a better position than Thailand, because I read that Thailand says they only have 95 days of oil covers or oil reserves. But in this part of the world, our part of the world is going to be okay?
We have actually been planning for this type of scenarios. So while geographically we're disadvantaged because we don't have the space, but if you remember, we also sort of passed laws to allow us to now centrally procure. We set up a GASCO for central procurement, and our laws also allow us to direct our GenCos to also have their own stockpile reserves.
Right.
So through a meshwork of the different strategies, we are able to preserve that element of stability.
I guess that means that many little pockets, in different parts and different areas, right, that we can tap on when the need arises. But we do know that for a small country like Singapore, almost everything we use is imported, to a large extent, because we don't really have any natural resources.
And I must say, Steve, that energy is existential for us.
Right.
And so, that's one part, because it covers everything.
That's right.
From all of your data centers to your manufacturing, keeping the lights on, allowing you to continue to have a podcast like this to reach out to our population, to even making sure that we have clean water to drink. Our desalination plants, they all need energy.
And it's a good thing you mentioned water, because when we talk about self-reliance, water used to be a very important issue for us too. We were concerned that someone might turn off the tap and we'll be in trouble, but we've found a way to resolve some of that.
That's right.
When it comes to energy, how close are we to finding that kind of self-reliance?
We are consistently looking for pathways to diversify. Earlier on, a few years back when I first became the energy minister, I said that we have these 4 switches. To that end, what we have done is that we have diversified the sources of natural gas imports. It used to be the majority piped natural gas from 2 countries, right? Malaysia and Indonesia. Today, less than half come from piped natural gas. More than half come from LNG sources from all over the world. But gas cannot be the only pathway for us. So what we've done is that we've also actively deployed domestic solarization. Now, but I mean, given the size of our country itself, the geography that we have, we are well ahead of our targets. By the way, when I first took on this thing, we committed to 2 gigawatt peak by 2030. We've already achieved that last year, 5 years ahead of time. So now we've raised the target to 3 gigawatt peak by 2030. And I've also said that sometime towards the latter half of 2030, we hope to double what we have last year, which is 4 gigawatt peak.
Right.
But we think that even if we maximize, we probably will maybe account for 8 to 10% of our total needs. So that's why we actively look and go out of natural gas to look for renewable energy imports from the ASEAN power grid. And we, on that sense, in the end itself, we've also progressed quite significantly. We've given conditional license to something like about 8.4 gigawatts of electricity from Australia to Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, Sarawak, Indonesia, and Malaysia itself.
Yeah.
Right.
And then on top of that, we are also exploring, very aggressively, ambitiously, not aggressively, on the advanced nuclear technologies. So I said no option is off the table.
Okay.
We're exploring. And then pari passu with that, we are also prepared to try sandbox ammonia, for instance, biomethane. So those are the things that we're doing.
Right.
But I have to also ask, like, going back to, the situation at hand, because all these are very good long-term plans and we want to talk about all of that. But I think in the very short term, the consumer is concerned, how will everything that is currently being played out, how would that affect my electricity bill? Do you think we will start seeing a price difference in maybe the next quarter in our electricity bills?
Well, I think that if the tensions continue, it continues to put a squeeze, and by virtue of the fact that our feedstock, right, the cost of the imports is going to rise, it's very difficult for us to keep the price down. But what we can do as a government is to manage that gradient
Okay.
of increase,
Okay.
mitigate sharp spikes, which we have, as a result of the Ukraine-Russian war, and all of the, sort of the power shortages, which we learn from other jurisdictions. What we've done is that we've set in motion the control measures,
Right.
something like your circuit breakers, so we have the we had the temporary price cap scheme. We even introduced the T-REC scheme for a while during the trial of all the supply shocks.
So for those who don't know what's T-Rex,
T-REC is this
Not the
temporary. No, it's not. It's a temporary sort of scheme that we help the big consumers of electricity, like for instance your factories, your semiconductors, to match them with the gencos directly, so that they can actually
Right.
negotiate a sort of a bulk pricing, right? At the moment we don't need it, but we have done it before, and we have the mechanism in place. These are
Right.
draw plans that we can take out and activate them if necessary.
So it's really to prevent the spikes, the jumps, high, low,
To
and that
smooth
kind
them.
of, right?
That's
But
right.
again, this also relies partly on the kind of buffer that we have, because if we run out of that, then actually there's nothing we can do to say, let me help you soften the blow, right?
Well, I think that not just that. You see, Steve, the key thing about energy and electricity is this, right? The moment you generate it, it's gone, right? The flow of electrons, there's no way, unless you put it into your energy storage systems and so on, the moment you flick the switch, it goes.
and someone must pay for it.
Yes, exactly. And you cannot also subsidize it inadvertently, because the nature of it is that then you're only going to benefit those that are consuming a lot
Yep.
more. Then, what's the incentive for them to conserve energy, right? So they just keep using it, right? So the key thing is what we've done is a very differentiated strategy. It's a price differentiated strategy, in the form of rebates. And what we do is we help the households that
Okay.
need it the most. And hence, we enhanced the U-Save rebates this year, 1.5 times. So you can get up to $570 depending on your housing type. Of course, those at the lower income will benefit the most in terms of that voucher. The guzzlers, we have got other things, right? Like the energy efficiency grant, the energy efficiency sort of savings kind of thing itself, even climate vouchers and so on, which we go out to help
Yeah.
enterprises,
So-
with their bills.
So all these we put in place before we knew the war was going to happen, but of course things change.
Yeah.
So will there be a bit more help right now that things have changed?
Well, things have changed today, and a large extent is because of the truncation in supplies. Now, how long this will last is another key consideration. And I mean, intraday, we monitor the developments, right? And at this point in time, there are also differing trigger mechanisms. When companies announce force majeure positions,
Yep.
because as you announce these things, then there will be cascade of other events that will happen. So when it happens, how we not just react, how we respond to it, and then what kind of measures that we set up. I think these are things at this point in time we are not able to commit to because it hasn't happened yet. But
Right.
once it happens, we have the appropriate response and the nimbleness to be able to react quite quickly.
Some people say, well, we're kind of far away from the war physically, and I don't have business dealings with countries like Iran or even in the UAE, for example. So they say, why should I worry so much about it? Maybe help us also quickly understand how this will really have a knock-on effect here in Singapore as well.
Well, it is a whole series of cascading events, because something that happens in the Middle East, which is such a large supplier to the world of oil, petroleum, all the downstream products, whether it's naphtha to your plastics, your polymer, and so on, these are all downstream products. It would be affected.
Right.
So you may think that the problem is so far away from us, but the gloves that you use, some of the cosmetics, the makeup that we use, right? These are all downstream products. So it would have a knock-on effect. And depending on how downstream it is, how much of the use, I think that effect could potentially be amplified. So you cannot say that just because it's so far away, it will not. It will affect us.
Yeah.
But in the intro, I also said how 20% of the world's daily oil consumption comes through the Strait of Hormuz, which means there's another 80% coming from other places, right?
Yeah.
So people are saying, well, can't we just get our oil from there, from those other sources?
Yeah, but you must look at the world not just as a uniform, homogeneous entity, right? Now, 80% comes from the rest of the world, but through the Straits of Hormuz, we are in Asia. What is the percentage that's supplied into Asia? Right? And then what is the rest of the world? I think you need to look at it from that light.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's clear that every conflict shows how vulnerable we are.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about our limitations here in Singapore. Have we come to a point where, an inflection point where we must accelerate our own self-reliance, like do more than what you say we have already done?
I think that train has left the station. 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, when we went on this energy journey, we already said that we have to diversify our entire portfolio. So it's not a question of
Should we?
It's a question of waiting for the technology, first and foremost, to be miniaturized, which is, we're talking about advanced nuclear technology, to be modularized and to be commercially viable. So today, the physics work, the engineering works. We are waiting for the first of a kind to be implemented. And at the same time, we also need to be ready. So we're working with the International Atomic Energy Agency. They've got this checklist of some 19 items, where there are milestones that you need to adapt to prepare ourselves for that preparedness and that readiness.
Roughly how long does it take, though? Like these kind of processes?
It can be. I mean, last year the Director General, I think Rafael Grossi, was here. He said that we are ready, but I mean that is his own sort of assessment. But we have to do an internal deep dive assessment. But even then, for us, it's a journey, right? It's to prepare ourselves so that we are indeed, as a people, we have the engineering talent, we have the skill sets, we have the diversity of talent, and all the safety protocols in place before we can even start to consider, right? Now, we are preparing ourselves for that, come what may. That means even if one day we decide not to deploy, but we have not made the decision whether to deploy or not, but even if one day we made the decision not to deploy, you can be sure as the sun rises in the east that someone in our neighborhood will deploy. We better jolly well learn all of the complications, the complexities of operating it, so that in the event that something happens in our neighborhood, we know how to take the safety precautions ourselves. So it's a no regrets move. And that's why we're moving in that direction. At the same time, back to your point about when did we cross the inflection point, 4 or 5 years back, we already said that we will start doing renewable energy imports, and that was the end result is the ASEAN Power Grid. We have consistently, month after month, reached out to our energy counterparts in Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, to get them to sell solar energy, wind energy, renewable energy imports into Singapore. So we have started that years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And basically every option is, on the table, so to speak.
table.
We're evaluating all of them.
Yeah.
But I just want to come back to nuclear energy, because we looked at that several years ago too, and we talked about it here in Singapore quite a lot.
2012.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
at that time, we concluded it was not possible for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because at that time, the technology was on, the feasibility study was done on conventional nuclear reactors. These are the really big ones.
Right,
The
right.
likes of Fukushima.
And we've seen the consequences that could occur when things go wrong as well.
Well, actually, the French have these large ones. They have not had a single accident.
Okay.
The Chinese, at the same time, right? You don't hear of these things happening.
So what about us then? Where are we in terms
We
of...
don't have the space for the large ones.
Yeah.
Because the emergency buffer zones,
Okay.
we don't have the space. But this is where it is exciting, because the advanced nuclear ones, the small modular reactors, whether it is the water cooled, gas cooled, the light water reactors and so on and so forth. These are all variants. They occupy a much smaller footprint. The buffer zone is literally at the
Okay.
fence of that thing, and that's why it's so interesting.
Right.
And so that's why for us, it behooves us to explore that. Not to say that, we have to do it, but at least we need to know the technology so that even if we don't, like I said, deploy in the penultimate scenario, we know how to do what to do, right?
So we're waiting for the technology to assure us before we can seriously commit.
The
Because
technology
once we
is-
go nuclear, we can't go back.
The technology is already available
Okay.
today.
So
We are-
what do we need?
What are
to
we waiting
seriously
for?
Consider,
We've embarked on a feasibility study, technical,
Okay.
commercial, as well as the engineering feasibility study, because there are actually hundreds of different designs. But under the 4 broad categories, which are the ones that's most suited for our
Okay.
geography and our climate. So we're conducting all those things.
Okay, which means it's very much back on the table again, because technology has changed and we see that there is a possibility of it
That's
fitting
right.
into our needs.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about AI because we know here in Singapore we're making a very conscious effort to, get that going more for Singapore and to have people more aware of how it actually works. But at the same time, AI requires a lot of energy to run it. At the same time now, especially in a situation where it's almost a bit like a crisis where we may run out of energy, do we still focus on AI? Do we still want to push that train far ahead,
He's going to say the ship has sailed.
Yeah, that ship has sailed, but I mean, can it be wind powered instead of gas powered?
AI is going to really be a very, very useful tool, particularly given our size. I mean, you look at our population, look at our declining total fertility rate.
Yeah.
Now, if you are able to get large swathe of our population, our workforce, embrace AI, adopt AI, get comfortable, fluent with it, then the different segments of the population will find a use case to move, to augment their capabilities, to enable and to reorganize to become even more efficient. I think we are one of probably the very few countries with such high levels of digitalization penetration across our entire workforce, right? So building on that, because that is already a competitive advantage, building on that and making it a sustainable one over the long haul, I think is something that is a no-brainer.
But it is very energy intensive.
Of course, it is.
So how do we weigh up our AI hub ambition with trying to get to net zero by 2050?
So multiple pathways. At some point in time, with
success.
a tongue in cheek, by 2030, the algorithm will help us to get to zero. But I mean, jokes aside, I think what's important today is this: we go onto this journey with our eyes open. We are realists, and if anything that defines us, we are pragmatic people, right? The global warming will affect us by overwhelming us with rising sea levels, and you and I would be doing this interview. We're in the basement.
Yeah, in our swimming costumes.
That's right. Maybe diving suits, right? So, whatever it is, whether we do it or we don't do it, other countries are going to continue anyway. So we might as well run out and be the first one out, in a race itself and run ahead. So to that end, what we're doing is that we're spending a significant amount of resources getting our workforce ready, getting our businesses first and foremost to adopt a human-centric AI mindset. Don't just think about their own margins and profits, because at the end of the day, it is about really making sure that the workforce can drive, operate, run, inspire, and create new AI systems that can really give you that maximum bang for the buck. So what we are doing is to ensure that we are ready for that kind of energy consumption. Now, we can't have wind because there's no wind. And don't forget, when it's wind, you have to deal with intermittence.
Yep.
During the time when there's no wind,
Then what's
right?
gonna
Then what
happen?
happens? I cannot tell the data centers or the AI say, hey, can you please don't be so intelligent, or shut down the data center when there's no wind. I need to ensure that consistency in terms of the base load,
Yeah.
right? We need to sleep, but the data centers, all these algorithms, they don't sleep.
Yeah.
And I need to cool it down.
Right.
Hence, a combination of renewable energy import. Why from Sarawak? Because they have base load. It's hydropower.
Okay.
Come what may, 24/7, the waterfall will continue to happen unless it dries up.
You need to go back to the old school way I heard when life was simpler. If you only had a TV as your source of entertainment, during a blackout, no TV. Yeah, more babies.
So then you're encouraging me to have power outages.
I didn't say anything. I just said when
Let's
it.
not get there.
Oh, by the way, we have one of the most reliable grids in the
Yes.
world.
Yeah. So that avenue is not an option. Okay.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on. We'll try to, talk through some of the things so that people don't speculate, and then they get, worried about the situation. But like you say, it's intraday, case by case, day by day basis. We will see how, things unfold, and hopefully we don't get to the stage where we have to invite you on and ask you, Minister, what's happening with my electricity bill?
That would be the how many days left question.
Yeah, then we will need a number to it.
Okay, so that's it for this week's episode of Deep Dive. If you have any thoughts, comments, we do love to hear from you, so please drop us a note. Otherwise, see you guys next week. Bye for now.
Bye.